Hi everyone. First of all, sorry for bumping Layla off. A little bit of schedule tightness this month because everybody's streaming. But my name is Eric Keller, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit today, and we're going to talk about flowers. So let me start with a little bit of background. I'm doing a new time this week, this month, just to test it out. My schedule's changed a bit, and I'm just going to do like an hour today, so it's going to be fairly short. Let me bring up my latest model. So what I've been working on for the past few streams is an original wasp concept. So I'm loading it up here. It's a fairly big model, and so this is where I've been so far. Doing some poly painting, getting some materials on there, and so on. But I wanted to switch it up today and start talking about preparing for a final composition, which I'm going to render eventually in Redshift here in ZBrush. So I want to pose my model, my little wasp, but of course, one thing to make it really nice is to pose it on something. And one of the things that I love modeling in ZBrush is flowers and plants. Of course, if you model insects, it's always good to have plants and flowers as well, because that's where most insects live. So a couple things I want to present to you really quick. One thing is I want to mention very quickly that I have a new course out on udemy.com, and it is all about ZBrush materials, because I recently did a live stream and people were asking me about ZBrush materials because I started painting materials on my wasp, and like, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a course that just focuses on this? So if you check out, it just came out the other day, so it's brand new, ZBrush 2024. It's about 3 hours and a little bit. It's going for $19.99. You can check it out at udemy.com. Just look up my name, Keller ZBrush Materials, or Demystifying ZBrush Materials. And here's a brief overview of what it covers. I go into material basics. Then I talk about standard ZBrush materials, matte cap materials, how to layer materials with a material mixer, and also Redshift materials. So, and I also give examples and little example quiz chapters, so you can actually get some practical applications. So what you'll learn, or you'll be able to finish this course, you'll have a good understanding of how to make your own ZBrush materials, any variety of matte cap, Redshift, or standard. And of course, this is something you can share with the community or just use to show off your models. If you want to check it out, there's a preview available. And I have a nice little
one of my recent ZBrush
video
live stream sessions.
But you don't need to hear two of me talking at the same time. But I have a little preview here if you want to check it out. So just want to give that little plug. So check out udemy.com, Demystifying ZBrush Materials with Eric Keller. So a little plug right there. And then the next thing I want to do is pull up my reference. So let's see real quick. Okay. I need your help. For some reason, this is not going to the right place, and I can't see the comments. Going to the right place. All right, we're back. Okay, so I recently went to Red Rock.
All right, we're back.
Okay. I went to Red Rock Canyon recently in California and took some pictures. So I wanted to see what kind of plants we could use for my insect setting. And so these are some of these are all pictures that I've taken. I'm not the greatest photographer in the world, but I do enjoy it. So I'll practice whenever I can. And so these are some of the images that I've come up with. Some of these are older, some of these are from my recent trip. I love stuff like this. So I'm just looking for something to perch my wasp on They look nice and colorful and has good lighting and stuff. And I'm kind of thinking of like one of these guys right here. So basically the way I'm going to attack this is take a look at the overall shape of these petals, because this is kind of like an unusual shape, and model a few of these and see if I can use a ray mesh to kind of arrange them around and then create variations. So since my wasp is kind of a sci-fi concept, I'm using some artistic license in the design. I'm going to take the same approach to the plant. But let's see if we can find something. This is kind of a nice, so we basically have kind of like a curly thing with some hair on it. They're coming kind of folded on top of each other. So I think that should look kind of cool. I'm going to put my reference, maybe scale it down a little bit. Cool. Scorpions are always a lot of fun to model. I've done a few of them, and I love scorpions. I mean, not up close and personal. Although I will say that I was at a Natural History Museum bug fair one time, and I had one of those big scorpions on my hand, and it was really cool because the scorpion wasn't threatened or anything, so it was just like perfectly comfortable hanging out in my hand. It wasn't going to sting me, and even if it was, there was somebody right there. So I've also had a tailless whip scorpion crawl in my hand. That's a lot of fun because those things are really creepy, but they're totally harmless. Okay, so let's start with my favorite material. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Thanks very much. I'm glad you're enjoying the courses. Hope to do some more on Udemy soon this year. So I've just gone into Dynamesh mode, kind of a low resolution. I'm actually going to lower the resolution even more. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of modeling like one of these petals right here. So it's kind of like a big scoop. Yeah, I had my microphone muted. You should be able to hear me now. Sorry about that. Yeah, I muted myself accidentally. Let me do something like this. I'm going to take the inscape cloth. Take a close-up look at these guys. The thing I like to do is, like, if I'm thinking about rendering this, I'm going to render all of these projects that I'm doing for the live stream in ZBrush using Redshift. But if I'm thinking about doing something where I'm going to render this in another package like Maya or something like that, and I'm doing flower petals, which I know are going to have a lot of repeating parts, then I'll actually try and make sure that I get UVs on one of the parts or a few of the parts early on before I start creating an array of them, just so I don't have to, like, later on figure out, oh, I got to make UVs for all these different parts, you know. Of course, if you don't change the topology, if, like, each part, even if it has a different shape but has the same point count, you can actually copy and paste UVs pretty easily using the UV master. Copy and paste UVs. So that's like a really convenient thing. It depends. Of course, the advantage of rendering in ZBrush, even if you're using Redshift, is it will render polypaint just fine, so you don't necessarily have to put UVs, but it's one of those things I like to think about ahead of time. So this is going to be, I think, my generic... I actually do have a Gnomon Workshop series that covers basically that, insect anatomy. And then it talks about ants and wasps. So let me pull it up real quick. So you can, I mean, it's an older one, and it also does a wasp. But I do actually, and also in my praying mantis one, I cover insect anatomy as well. So hold on a second, let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, this one right here, I actually talk about introduction to taxonomy, and also I talk about anatomy, wings, and I use an ant as an example. And then another one is this one right here, which I talk about mantis anatomy as well. So there's a fair amount of insect anatomy on that. The other thing I wanted to point out is, if you're curious, is I do have a YouTube channel that I think gets underutilized because I don't do a very good job promoting it. So I'm trying to change that by promoting it now. And these are all available on YouTube. If you look up Entomology Animated, I have insect anatomy on bee mouthparts anatomy. I have 2 videos on that. It's kind of unfinished. I also have this beetle sculpting demo. This is a time lapse, but I go through basically from very beginning all the way through. I talk about, you know, sculpting the beetle, and also reference, as well as painting in substance. So that's kind of a nice video. So it's about, what? It's a time lapse, so it's not that long. Yeah, it's like 16 minutes. But I also have a few series on here that go into more depth. I've got one on damselfly, one on tailless whip scorpion, and this is a playlist and has a whole bunch of videos on here. And this is not one of them. That basically cover my sculpting process. So if you want to see more insect anatomy in ZBrush, check out entomologyanimated.com. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to plug that. So there's a bunch of videos up here, actually. And then I have my, I have a little behind the scenes and the stuff I did for Wednesday, you know, the stuff that I got the Emmy nomination for, hint, hint, and some other cool stuff. So check out Entomology Animated, lots of cool videos there. Okay, let's bring this up a little bit. I'm being a little bit picky here, but I think that's okay. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit, and then I'll do like a quick ZBrush. I want to give myself a little bit of extra room here. I'm kind of thinking of the shape that I want to do. This one's kind of nice because it's not too many of them, and it's kind of also an interesting shape. So what I'm going to do now is let's do a quick ZBrush. So just to get a nicer topology on here. So do that. It's kind of good. It's a 2000. Let's bring it down another half. Okay, so that's cool. That's not great, but you know. One more try. There we go. So we'll do that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly, let's look at the back here. I'm going to go in here to polygroups, and let's do group front. So that came out pretty well. I'm going to maybe expand. You can expand your selection. Like I hit everything except for this polygroup. And then I'm going to press Control-Shift-X a couple times just to expand that. Actually, I think there's a better way to do this. Let's see. If I go into Select Lasso and Control-Shift-Click on an edge here, it's going to hide that edge loop, right? It goes all the way around. Let's see if it goes all the way to the bottom here. Yep. So I have a nice, like, separation between these two pieces, and then I'm going to do auto groups. So it's going to create a green group for this side and a blue group. Control-Shift-Click to bring everything back, and then I'm going to Control-Shift-Click on this point so I just see the blue and the purple group. Control-W to put those into a new polygroup. So what I'm left with is two polygroups, kind of evenly split. And now if I go into Z plugin, I'm going to unwrap, not symmetrically. Well, you could do symmetrically, actually. I'm going to do polygroups, unwrap. Let's take a look what those go to the UV map menu here and do morph UV. That's not great. Let's try this. Got overlapping shells. Oops. Let's try that again. I'm going to do turn off symmetry this time and do unwrap. That's better. Okay. So the symmetry button off have better. I mean, they're not the greatest UVs in the world, but they work for now. Like I say, I like to get some UVs on early on. And now I'm going to subdivide this, Control D a few times. And let's see. Cool, glad you guys are enjoying this. I think moving this, I wanted to move the time to something that's a little bit easier for people to see on the East Coast and in Europe, because I was doing Wednesday nights late at night here on the Pacific Coast, and I realized not a lot of people are watching at that time, so hopefully this will allow more people to see. Start putting a bend in here real quick like this. And then let's play with array mesh a little bit. So I'm going to turn on array mesh. Let's set the repeat up to like 5. Nice odd number. And let's go with rotate. Something like this. So I'm just going to kind of use a ray mesh as a way to kind of block out the basic shape of the flower quickly. And then what I can do is convert it to a mesh and then start to manipulate each petal individually. Let's see if I do offset here, just to this, and then let's choose the pivot. It's just kind of fun to play with these settings a little bit. What I'll do here is the other thing I like about working with the ray mesh is I can kind of edit the model a little bit. The other thing is, let's see if I can lock position. The thing about that is it's kind of, yeah, it's messing it up a little bit. It's not working exactly the way I want. I can also try transpose. Let's do this. Go back a few steps before I go too wonky. I'll just turn the ray mesh off real quick and do something like this, and alright, let's try turning on the ray mesh again. Let's go back to pivot and let's see if I can. It's also fun to play with them, and do that, no. Nope. Let's do a full reset here. Here we go, now we're getting somewhere. There we go, this is what I want. I think let's do 7, I like odd numbers. You can also, you know, if, there we go, now I'm getting somewhere. With a ray mesh, you know, if you're struggling with trying to find good settings, don't forget that you can go to Lightbox and under arrays, you can double click on one of these presets. And that's a great way to get something started if just messing with the controls starts to drive you crazy. Question about my experience with past projects. Have you ever done any large-scale projects where you've had to consider entire ecosystems, and what is your thought process in taking that into consideration? Yeah, that's a cool question. I mean, let me see. you're talking about an entire ecosystem, you're talking about all the animal and plant life that exhibits within that. No, I haven't done an entire system like that. I've been wanting to, like playing with the idea of putting together a pond in Unreal, and I've started a few projects like that. The closest I've come to that is some of the entomology animated videos I've done where I've set up an entire scene where I have bugs flying through it and interacting with the plants and that kind of stuff. If you check out the entomology animated website, you can see some of those animations. I'm trying to think. I did a biology textbook, a digital biology textbook for Apple and the E.O. Wilson Foundation a few years ago. But of course, I was collaborating with other people, and we did some kind of like ecosystem modeling and diagrams with that. So that was kind of fun. The planetarium show, I think actually that's a good example of one where again, this is something that had a script and a director and all that kind of stuff, but I had to do a world within a water drop, and I had to do all these microbes. So there was like a tardigrade and a rotifer and paramecium and other types of little creepy crawlies, and there was mushroom spores and plant spores. That was a lot of fun, especially because I had to model everything, rig everything, animate everything, and render everything, and it was also projected on a dome. So that, I think, is probably the closest where I've had to do an entire ecosystem in there. Trying to think if there's some other things that I've done similar to that. I think that's one of the bigger ones that I've done. But yeah, I'm always working towards doing something like that because I think it's such a cool challenge. I think these days with stuff like Unreal is going to make that a lot easier because, when you have real-time rendering, that makes things much more manageable. Trying to set up everything like that to render in something like a Redshift is a bit of a nightmare. Or, well, not Redshift, but other rendering programs. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, so I have kind of a basic setup here. And then what I can do is, let's see if I add another array to this. So this is where it gets fun. So I've added a stage, transform stage. So this is my original stage, and this is the new stage, which is allowing me to add a whole other duplicate of these guys. So this is what makes plant modeling a lot faster in ZBrush. Let me see. So I don't have to do a million of them. That would be pretty dense. I think just maybe 3, just so I have enough to play with. All right. So let's see if I do a little bit of rotation here, just to give them a little bit of variety. I don't want them to go too far from the center, though. That's kind of cool. And then I'll just go in here and individually start messing with them a little bit. Just playing with the mirror settings here. Let's try that. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off extrude, and let's see, make mesh. It's telling me, oh, it's got different subdivision levels, so let's go down lowest subdivision level, choose delete higher, go back to array mesh, and make mesh. Yeah, if you're in LA, check out the Griffith Observatory Signs of Life Signs of Life Planetarium show. I worked on that for a couple years. It was a lot of fun. What I'm going to do now is let's do one more make mesh. Okay. And I'm going to I do this. Now that I have the UVs on here, I don't need these polygroups, so I can go in here and maybe do auto groups for everything. So now everything has its own group, and then I have my mask by polygroup slider down here, so I can start to use this with my move brush and turn off dynamic size, bring down my Z intensity, and just start playing with a little higher Z intensity than that. Starting to move each one of these around. It creates kind of more of a unique shape, kind of like what I have here. Again, this is a made-up plant, so I'm not going for accuracy here. I'm just going to look something that looks nice, because remember, this is on another planet, right? That's my excuse for not being accurate. Let's make sure I don't have symmetry on. But this is a great way to attach any kind of flower. I kind of like more interesting flowers than, I mean, all flowers are wonderful, but I like the ones that are a little bit more interesting and have this kind of repeating pattern of interesting looking petals to it, as opposed to like a typical, like a tulip or something like that. Although I like tulips too. I want something that's kind of cool for my wasp to land on, so it looks like it's and just make an interesting composition. One thing I probably should have done, though, is probably poly painted my original petal on here, so that I could save time and I could just adjust the other poly paint. But you know, that's okay. I can poly paint them pretty quickly, the individual ones. Another thing I could do is, since I have UVs on here, I could actually go back. Let's make sure we save this, by the way. Go back, poly paint one of them, convert that to a texture, apply that texture to the other petals, and then convert the texture to poly paint. So that's another way about going about doing it. Is the kind of stuff that you have to learn when you're in a hurry in production. Really quick sheets and things like that. Let's see. Another one of my favorite brushes to use in this for flowers is the spiral brush. Take the spiral brush, bring the Z intensity down really low and the draw size really large, and then I can go in here and just uncurl these things and start to give them more of a unique shape for each petal. That's too much. The smooth brush will not change the vertex count unless you have like Sculptress on. The smooth brush is just going to even out or average the point position, right? And so this is a good opportunity to take my smooth brush and then lower the Z intensity so it's not so extreme. Another thing I could do is, now that I have these guys arranged, I'm going to subdivide, Control D. Or I could use dynamic subdivision, either way. And that way the smooth brush won't be quite so extreme, and I'll start getting more detail out of here. And of course I can go back to my spiral brush and maybe curl some of these around a little bit. Remember, spiral brush, if I'm going to go the opposite direction, just hold the Alt key. So I'm going to have that kind of thing going. And then like this. These are good techniques also if you end up using like megascans, which I love megascans, we use them all the time, but sometimes their model you need to, if you're doing something specific or you need something high res, you'll have to go and start editing the models that you get from megascans. So these kinds of techniques are really helpful for that. Let's pull this up a little bit. Another thing is I can use transpose. I'm just going to control tap on this so it masks everything out. Here's another cool technique for bending and that kind of stuff, right? If I use the transpose right now, it's going to bend or move the entire thing, but maybe I just want to use it to curl things a bit. So With the transpose activated, I'm going to press the O hotkey so I get the focal shift slider, and I'm going to move the focal shift slider to, like, you know, a positive direction. And what this does is that it basically creates like a fall off from the center of the transpose. So now if I rotate, you see how it's not rotating the entire thing? It's just rotating what's close to this. So I can come in here and use this as a deformer, really, which is kind of nice. And, you know, use it for move or scale or rotate, any one of them. Nice way to put some twist on it. You know, it's a great way to create variation. You just got to remember that once you're done doing this, don't forget to set the focal shift back to -100. Otherwise, the next time you use transpose, weird things are going to happen. You're like, what happened? So. So now this is the fun part. It's just coming in here, you know, and then for like detail, what I'll probably do is, again, probably should have spent more time detailing the original before creating the array mesh, just to save time later on, because now I got to go into detail each and every one of these. But there's tricks for doing that. You know, I can use the noise. The surface noise is a great way to quickly add detail to these things. Again, I could also just take one of these, detail the heck out of it, and then create some texture maps based on those details. Apply it to the other petals that have the same UVs, and then use that texture map as a way to generate detail. So there's always a workaround. There's always a way out of any jam in ZBrush if you're just think it through. ZBrush is a very forgiving program. So I'm going to come in here and fix this mess. Might not even see that, the final composition. Also might create some kind of cool detail. I always create some little cool plant detail to cover up the ends of each of these stems. Or if you really wanted to, I could dynamesh all these things together and then squish them around like that, but I don't want to do that because that's going to create kind of a nightmare in terms of retopology and stuff. Let's get the old spiral brush. I like to move back and forth between the different brushes as I work. Going out into the desert to take pictures or whatever natural system is closest to you is always a lot of fun. We did manage to see a wasp that had just stung a caterpillar, so the caterpillar was paralyzed and the wasp was dragging it back to its lair, and I would have made such an awesome picture, but of course I was too clumsy. I tried to get close with that camera, it spooked the wasp flew away. The saddest part of the whole story is I probably ruined the wasp's dinner. But it would have been a cool picture if I hadn't been so clumsy. And it was also kind of a bright blue metallic wasp, kind of like similar to the, well, mine's not blue, but it's metallic. does it look? Let's turn on the perspective button. It's getting there. It's not exactly like this, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Get some of these guys closer up here. I mean, that's the cool thing about anything in nature is repeating plant pattern plus variation, you know. Also try and think about the rhythm of the shapes, like these petals down here, how they form this type of broad rhythm, and then you have this cluster in the middle. If you read it right to left like a piece of music, you know, bum, 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 you know, it's like, I like to try and think in terms of rhythm when I'm composing something. So right now I still have everything kind of clumpy in the middle, so maybe I need to go down here and spread these out a little bit so that I can kind of get that kind of contrast between these sparser ones at the bottom that might be spread out a little bit more, maybe not so curled, versus the ones at the top that are more curled and more clumped together. And of course, it's always good to go to a lower subdivision level because that can speed things up a bit. If I keep smoothing things too often, things will get thin, so every once in a while I can go back with the inflate brush and kind of thicken them up a little bit. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap this up in about 10 minutes because I have to pick somebody up. So, I apologize for it being a short one today. But we're going to continue this one, the next live stream. So I'll make I scheduled it for next Thursday at about this time. I'm going to see if I can. If I change the schedule, I'll make an announcement on my Instagram. So my Instagram is bluepatone01. So you can check that out. And, excuse me. I usually do an announcement also on my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn's Eric Keller. So check that out. I make an announcement a couple days before my live stream, which is going to be, I think, on Thursdays this month. Things kind of got shifted around, so unfortunately I feel bad for bumping up against so quickly to Layla, because she had a really nice rhythm going, and I hope I did not interrupt it too much. I know it's probably weird going from soldiers to flowers like this quickly, but you know, hey, variety is what ZBrush is all about. Okay, so I liked how that was going, so let's take this one. Kind of a similar thing, so it's a bit more spread out. I'm going to give opportunities for my places for my wasp to land on. What I'll have to do, you know, once I get this plant in a good position and with some detail and some color on it, then what I'll do is I'll bring in my wasp model and use probably transpose master and some other techniques to create a pose for it on the flower. There's a few things that I got to finish on the wasp, but I thought it was a nice opportunity to switch things up and talk about plants a little bit so that there's a bit more variety here. But it's fun to do, you know, I love doing macro shots in CG because it's always a great lighting exercise and a great, you know, composition exercise. And of course, now that we can do redshift here in ZBrush, that makes things a lot easier because I can do things like translucency and real transparency and beautiful lighting and beautiful shadows and all the kind of good stuff, and depth of field, which of course is huge in macro. Depth of field is what makes the composition look juicy, and really also helps give a real nice sense of scale. The other thing which I often say is, like, if you're trying to get a sense of scale, like a small world, you know, water drops are a great thing to put into your model, into your compositions, because, you know, of course they add a lot of nice sparkle, and they make the image, of course, juicy as well. But they also give you an immediate sense of scale, because everybody has a familiarity with the size of a water drop. So if you see, you know, this bug and you want to kind of let people have a sense of how big it is, you can put some water drops in its face or in the plants nearby, and that's a great clue to scale. A lot of macro photographers, insect photographers, will go out early in the morning when the dew is still on the plants and the bugs are still waking up. Yes, bugs do actually sleep, and so you find a lot of them sleep in on the flowers, especially in spring when it's still a little bit cold, because if you've done any macro photography of insects, you know they tend to fly away when you get close to them. So if they're slow moving in the morning, that makes things a lot easier, and you can get some really nice pictures that way. Okay. So just want to kind of reiterate, just an opportunity to plug. New course on udemy.com, Demystifying ZBrush Materials with Eric Keller. It's brand spanking new, latest version of ZBrush. Covers material basics, standard ZBrush materials, matte cap materials, how to layer materials using the material mixer, and redshift materials, and lots more. And it comes with this very nice demo model of the lizard that you can use and follow along with. So check that out. Hopefully you'll get an appreciation for all the crazy cool things you can do in ZBrush materials. And I'll be following up this course with another one on lighting and rendering in ZBrush. And it's like 3 hours long, so it's something you can watch in a couple days or a day if you want. Okay, so I'm going to save next on this and do a little bit more editing. If you have any more questions, I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. Just let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And I might work on this during the week so that we can start talking about posing the insect. Well, I'd like to actually do some detailing in the next live session with this particular flower, just to show you some techniques and how to do it. And what I'll do is I'll demonstrate what I was talking about in terms of using poly paint and texture together, so to make things more efficient. Since these all have the same UVs, like I said, I can poly paint one of these guys, do some detailing on it, convert that into a texture, apply that same texture to another petal, and then convert that texture into a poly paint, and so on, and rinse or repeat. It's just a fast way to get color on here. I think there's some other cool techniques we can explore too. Take a look at this so far. It's still looking a little clumpy. I think I need to straighten these guys out in the middle a little bit more, like this, and then spread these guys out in the bottom so that I have some negative space here. Like I like this negative space. That makes it look a bit more interesting. And of course, if I decide that I have too many, I can always get rid of a few, or maybe shrink them down and put them smaller at the bottom. So this right here is getting kind of a nice rhythm right here. I have this one, this clump, and maybe something like this over here. Looking from different views. The other nice thing about this is if I wanted to use more than one flower, I could just duplicate this one and rotate it and don't have to do that much more changing to it, because it's going to look different from every angle. It's getting there though. Looking pretty cool. So this kind of thing is nice. That's a good example, kind of a nice rhythm right there. And then you have these two down here. Let's take a look at it over here. I like to do that every once in a while, just in case things start to get too soft looking. It's getting there. Certainly array mesh makes things a lot faster when doing things like this. I was a little bit fumbly with it today, but I think it's just from being rusty because I haven't done it in a while. But it's a fun way to work. The other thing that'll be nice is you got to get that fuzz, like in my reference here. This kind of fuzz. The nice thing about this fuzz is since it's so sporadic and random, it'll be easy. I'll just do that with fiber mesh, and should look pretty nice. So just a quick reminder of what the reference looks like. Lots of cool options for different poses here. Like this image. Of course, when I was taking these pictures, I kneeled right onto a cactus, which was fun. This is another one that I love to do something like this. You could use a lot of the same techniques. Just model one of these suckers, right? Then use array mesh to kind of come up with a shape. Or here's another one. You could just model one of these, and again, array mesh to kind of arrange them. And of course, another technique I've used, had a model of feather for a client the other day, and I tried a bunch of different things, and I've actually found that nano mesh worked the best for me. So you could do the same thing, model a flower, create a nano mesh from it, and then place it all over. Like here's another good example. I love this stuff because it looks like there's a little home there for some little buggy. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it was such a short live stream. And I will see you next week. We'll continue working on this flower and talk about different techniques for painting it and detailing it. So I will see you that time then. And everybody have a good week and have fun ZBrushing.